Welcome to the Vineyard Boise Sunday Message. You can join us live on Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and vineyardboise.org/live. Subscribe to our message podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. And if you'd like to support Vineyard Boise, you can give online at vineyardboise.org/give. Today's message is brought to you by Pastor Mike Freeman. Enjoy.
Well, good to see you all. It just felt like a bow tie kind of day. So, bow ties are cool. And I need to get used to looking there. This is where I'm supposed to look, yes? Because actually I'm probably talking to more people there than I'm talking to here. And yet you're all just so gloriously here. And yet you're gloriously here. Anyway, okay. Me, perhaps not as gloriously here, but you are gloriously here. Wow, okay. And we're in Mark 4, and it's story time. That's what it was on a regular basis for Jesus. I want to start by going to the end of today's text, and then we'll go back to the beginning, okay? Because the end of today's text, which you'll find in Mark chapter 4, verses 21 through, it's like verse 34 or something like that. You'll find this, and this is from the Message, because I like how the Message captures this. Eugene Peterson, I think, did a marvelous job here. With many stories like these, replacing the word parables with stories, which is, I think, a good switch for us, because parables becomes this religious thing, terminology. It's stories. It's stories. It's not even, sometimes we'll say parables are earthly stories with heavenly meanings. Okay, they're stories. Jesus was a storyteller. It was his natural mode of communication. With many stories like these, he presented his message to them, fitting the stories to their experience and maturity. He was never without a story when he spoke. When he was alone with his disciples, he went over everything, sorting out the tangles, untying the knots, which were mostly all inside of them. In fact, I love it in the Greek text. It says that he loosed or explained everything literally. I mean, it's tois, idiois, mathetais. It's to his idiot disciples. Idios in Greek we get idiot from, because idios is this it's this intensely owning word, in the sense, this is mine, this is my own, my precious. Okay, so it's my own. That's idios is. It's this high level of ownership. So to his own disciples. And so when somebody's a village idiot, it's someone who lives detached from his community and is in his own little world. And boy, does he say interesting things. That could be a big portion of our culture at this point, I suppose, perhaps. He explained everything to his idiot disciples when they were alone. And I love that. But he told stories. And they were constantly asking him for clarification on the punchline. And the whole thing is, if you don't get a joke, it just kind of ruins it to explain it. And I think I detect personally, as I look at the stories of Jesus, I just detect this mild sense of irritation. In fact, one time it's not, it's just blatant and it's not mild. In fact, the first one, the parable of the sower, they're asking, can you explain this to us? And Jesus actually is irritated. Can you all be comforted by a Jesus who gets irritated? He was actually irritated. And he said, don't you understand this story? If you don't get this one, how are you going to get any of them? You doughheads, which is what my uncle always affectionately called me and my brother, doughheads. You doughheads. Okay, let me go over this then. This is this, this is this. And you have a detailed explanation of that one, detailed explanation also of the parable of the weeds and the wheat, which actually doesn't happen in Mark. And there you have to detect the irritation. Okay, this is this, and this is this, and this is this, and this is this. How boring is this? Do we have to go over this line by line? Listen to the story. All right, so Jesus was a storyteller. We have Luke, actually, the Gospel of Luke, because we have 3 synoptic Gospels. Interestingly enough, the stories of Jesus are found in the 3 synoptic Gospels. You might have things that loosely apply, but not really, in the Gospel of John. There are more metaphors. I am the good shepherd, I am the door, and so forth. So we have very strong metaphors, but no Jesus stories in John, which is really interesting. But the 3 synoptic Gospels, that's where we find all the stories. Luke has the largest number of them, 24, and also the largest number of unique stories, 18 of them unique to Luke. Matthew has 23, of which 11 are unique. Mark just has 8 stories, and one of them is unique, which is one of them we'll be looking at this morning. What's really interesting about Luke having the most of these 24 stories, 18 of them unique to Luke, is that Luke's stories almost all occur in a trip that actually is just lickety-split in Matthew and Mark, going from Galilee up to Jerusalem. Matthew and Mark are very efficient, and they just get him there. It's just boom, he's there. In Luke, it takes like 10 chapters. It's like he's meandering. He's taking his time. He's highly interruptible. And yet he's going for the ultimate the destiny of his life. The pivotal moment of his life is coming, and it's right up there ahead of him. Within weeks, within days. And he's taking his time, not nervously, not pacing frantically back and forth. And he's also not getting all of a sudden very direct and sharp and to the point. He tells most of his stories in Luke in that context. Spends a lot of time at tables, eating and laughing and telling stories that just totally undid his audience. So, we have 8 stories in Mark. We've already encountered a couple of them. Guests of the bridegroom, the new patch, new wineskins, the strong man. You can't break into the strong man's house and steal his stuff until you take care of the strong man. You got to neutralize him, then you can steal his stuff. That was in chapter 3. Then last week, the parable of the sower. Sower went out to sow seeds, etc., etc. And so we're kind of crossing the divide. And we do cross we're going to look at 2 stories. 2 facts, 2 stories, and then 2 observations about those 2 stories. That is our itinerary for this morning. And Simon, again, you can tell me how many sermons do I manage to preach this morning? Okay, 5. Okay, yeah. It used to be 7 to 10, but 5. All right. So stories. Now, here's the thing with the storytelling. I was just searching for images of storytellers, and this is one of the first images that came up. And if it's there somewhere, it's slide number 2, Calvin, whoever's. Okay, Lynn Cabral. I just love that picture. If you can think of the teaching landscape of Jesus, see that. Okay, see that. Not necessarily the ages, although honestly, for us to get the stories, we've got to become that age. And that's the problem with us in adult evangelical church world culture. We've got these thick books of theology in which we're telling everything straight, when Jesus always told things slant. Always told them slant. It's Emily Dickinson, actually. She said, tell all the truth, but tell it slant. That's not meant to be a license for politicians to be crooked in their speech. It just means, have a bit of fun with this, will you? Tell it slant. Success in circuit lies. Too bright for our infirm delight. The true superb surprise is lightning to the children eased with explanation kind. The truth must dazzle gradually or every man be blind. The theme that we're using to tie together this next stretch of the Gospel of Mark is the Jesus way. And so unofficially, I guess you could say, our catchword in here, in our community, is, it is the way. It is the Jesus way, the Jesus word. We're just going to, what are observations about the Jesus way? And for this morning, the one I would pick out would be very simply, the Jesus way is to tell it slant. and become a people who traffic in stories. And it's an art. You'll grow in it. Some of us, is it okay to say suck? Some of us just suck at stories and jokes. So you have to practice. Become adept at the skill of just relating stories. You make them vivid and you put yourself in them. And so just try it and grow in the art of storytelling. The art of storytelling is the Jesus way. It's what Jesus did. He never taught without one. With us, it's a 7-point sermon that has alliteration. Well, that's good. Alliteration is good. Rhyming, that's good. Good memory devices. But you know what? As I've sat where you have sat for 24 years. When I first came into this building, it was 1997. Troy Robinson, founding pastor, was teaching. I don't remember any of Troy's 7 points. Don't remember any of them. I cannot reproduce any of Troy Robinson's 7 points. But you know what I've never forgotten? Are his stories. Stories stick. Parents, do not teach your children the 5 points of Calvinism. Do not teach them the 5 contrasting points of, what is it? Oh gosh, whatever that's called. Arian, oh gosh, whatever. Yeah, there we go, yeah. Don't do that. Just don't do that. Tell stories. You know what's interesting is that Abraham Lincoln, who as president, which one was he? 16th president? He, of course, was constantly telling stories, and the upper crust of society hated him for it. Oh, this homespun, original guerrilla, country hick lawyer with his constant stories, so undignified, right? What's interesting is that this was a man who had to educate himself because his father, Thomas Lincoln, despised the book learning. But Thomas Lincoln was a storyteller. That's how he was known, as a storyteller. Lincoln picked that up. It's one thing he took from his father, and he mastered the art of telling stories. And he didn't care. We have to become as little children to get it. So we don't need volumes of theology as much as we need stories. And the Bible is a book of stories. It's a book of narrative. It's not a theological textbook. It's a book of stories. Stories that are meant to warn and cajole and entertain, to make us laugh, and ultimately to punch us in the face. Because we might tell the truth and tell it slant, but it's got a bit of an edge. You're in the middle of laughing when suddenly you realize, oh, that just stabbed me in the heart. Ow. It's like it snuck up on me and knifed me from behind. Ow. All right, so Jesus told stories. All right. 2 facts, 2 stories, 2 observations. 2 facts. First of all, Jesus said, so going to the start of the text, Trevor launched us this morning with it. Mark 4:21-22. He said to them, do you bring a lamp to put it under a bowl or a bed? Instead, don't you put it on its stand? For whatever is hidden is meant to be disclosed, and whatever is concealed is meant to be brought out into the open. If anyone has ears to hear, let him hear. Okay, so the simple observation, or summation, I should say, of the fact. All right, there's a fact about stories, specifically Jesus stories. Stories are meant to turn on the light. They're not meant to obfuscate, to confuse, to mislead. Kind of sounds like that sometimes, because that's just what happens when you've got the upper crust religious types who deal with propositions and you're just telling stories, and I want to pin you down on this, and you just keep telling stories. And so they're always hearing, but never getting it. They're always seeing, but totally missing it. Lest they should see with their eyes, hear with their ears, understand with their hearts, and then actually it's like, whoa, I just got nailed. And they turn around and I can heal them. But stories are not meant to obfuscate, to hide, to conceal, if they do conceal anything, it's for the purpose of revealing it. Okay, so I'd like to illustrate this. If we can we just turn off the house lights? Okay. Oh, they're good, okay. We have ambient light. Oh, look at that light. It's so ambient, so warming. And ooh, wow. Good thing those spotlights are dimmed and pointing up because they're kind of cool now. And so the sower went forth to sow his seed. And some fell on the wayside, and some fell on rocky soil, and some fell among weeds, and some was good soil. And it produced a crop, a harvest, 30, 60, 100 times what was sown. And everyone said, "Ah, what a cool story." There was a man going from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he fell among robbers and was left half dead along the road. And then there's this Samaritan chap who happens along after others had just passed by, and he stops and he helps the man, bandages him up, takes him to the inn, and provides for a prolonged stay, saying, "I'll pay whatever additional debts there are when I return." And we say, "Aw, such a cool story. I love that one. I love that story." Right? That's actually not the kind of light that the parables bring. The parables bring, okay, just flip all the lights on. Yeah. Did that hurt your eyes? Did I delay that long enough to where it hurt your eyes just a little bit? Now, for you at home, you see, you can't get the full effect. I don't know if you saw anything. Hello? Did you see anything? Okay. So you can try this at home. This is just a possible homework assignment this week. And I encourage wives, just try this with your husbands this week. It's called at 3 o'clock in the morning when they're sound asleep. Just flick the overhead light on full. Parents, no. Children, just do this randomly to your parents this week. That's not the sound you'll hear. Because when we get that kind of light, I mean, who does that in the middle of the night? Who does that and says, "Ah, look, light"? What you do is just like, what the? Okay, yes. Annoyance, pain. Oh, that's parable. And what you do when you do this, children and wives, when you do this, what you announce is you just had a parabolic experience. And then you turn it back off and run. Okay, just do that if you really... You all know that's just slightly tongue-in-cheek, right? Okay. Parables are meant to turn on the light. The kind of light they turn on is not a nice, warming, comforting light, but it's one that tends to pierce the darkness when you finally get it and hear it, and it's painful. All right, I'll read these words by Amy Jill Levine. Her book, which I happen to have my copy right here, Short Stories by Jesus. What I love about Amy Jill Levine, she's a New Testament scholar and she's Jewish. And you might say, what does a Jewish person have to say about short stories by Jesus? Oh, I don't know. Maybe because Jesus is Jewish and she's Jewish. She might just get him on a level that we're not accustomed to because we think these are the stories of Jesus. Aww. And we've domesticated them. We've made them our friends. We've made them comfortable, like a nicely contained candle. And it's a light that actually is meant to blaze into your soul when you actually get it. So this is what our friend Amy Jill Levine says about stories, Jesus stories. When we seek universal morals from a genre designed to surprise, challenge, shake up, or indict, and look for a single meaning in a form that opens to multiple interpretations, we're necessarily limiting the parables and so ourselves. If we stop with the easy lessons, good though they be, we lose the way Jesus' first followers would have heard the parables, and we lose the genius of Jesus' teaching. They knew that the parables and the tellers of parables were there to prompt them to see the world in a different way, to challenge and at times to indict. We might be better off thinking less about what they mean and more about what they do. Remind, provoke, refine, confront, disturb. All right, so challenge is let the light in. Let it remind and confront and provoke and stir and yes, even indict. And the indictment is for you. Stop listening to stories for other people. All right? The indictment is for you. So let me heard. So fact number 1, stories are meant to turn on the light. All right, now, fact number 2 about stories. Next little section of what Jesus had to say. He said, consider very carefully what you hear. Love the Greek. It's just this marvelous blepeta tia kuata. Blepeta, y'all see what y'all are hearing. Or, watch what you hear. Which is really interesting. It involves 2 senses. I'm hearing something, watch it. Watch what it is you're hearing. If there were 3 Greek words in our text that apply across the board in our culture, it would be blepeta ti akuata. Watch what you hear. Both in the present tense, implying an ongoing source of auditory, we're hearing stuff. Watch what you're hearing. Because with the measure you use, it will be measured to you, and even more. Whoever has will be given more. Whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken from them. We call this in our culture, use it or lose it. Fact number 2 about stories. Stories repay you according to your level of engagement with them. So engage and watch that benefit come. What's the benefit? Oh, dear Lord. Wow. You just have me dead to rights. I see. And I can't unsee what I see. Thank you. Because I was pretty comfortable under these covers, under these blankets with that pillow over. You know, that whole thing with the light doesn't work. And this is what husbands will do this week. They're now going to wear, if you're not already, you're going to wear those eye covers. You'll be impervious. That means you have an additional step. Just have to take it away. Stories repay you with, or according to your level of engagement with them. And what's required for engagement with stories is the engagement of the imagination. That goes back to the picture of Lynn Cabral. We must become like little children to inherit the kingdom of God. We must become a people of stories. Okay, those are the 2 facts. Now 2 stories. The reign of God is like this. A sower scatters seed on the ground, then goes to bed at night and gets up day after day. Through it all, the seed sprouts and grows, without the sower knowing how it happens. The soil produces a crop by itself. First the blade, then the ear, and finally, emphasis on finally, the ripe wheat in the ear. When the crop is ready, the sower wields the sickle, for the time is ripe for harvest. Okay, I got ahead of myself. I want both these stories, and then we'll let them interact together a bit. That's story number 1. Called it the story of the growing seed, only occurs in Mark, and Jesus doesn't explain it. Which means it's fair game, people. It's fair game. Ooh, let's let this one mess with us a little bit. There are layers in this one. And let me encourage you to do that. The explanation to the disciples, don't limit yourself to that. It's almost like, no, I don't want the explanation of the joke. Because he just explained it on one level for idiot disciples. What might it mean for these idiot disciples? Here, now. And so, yeah, that gives us a little room to have some fun. Okay, so we have the growing seed. Man plants seed, or woman plants seed, and then goes to bed and gets up. And night and day, night and day, night and day, nothing happening, but he keeps showing up, keeps looking, and then little bit, there's a little leaf, and then there's more, and then there's and then the harvest is here, etc. So that's story number one. Story number two, Jesus went on to say, oh, what comparison can we use for the reign of God? What image will help to present it? I think that's a serious question. I don't think that's, I already know what it is. I think Jesus is in the moment, this storytelling moment in a boat on the Sea of Galilee with all these people flocked at the shore. And this whole day of storytelling, of which we just have glimpses of a few, he's like, okay, come on, there's got to be another one here. What's the other story? What's a comparison? Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Here we go. It's like a mustard seed, which people plant in the soil. It's the smallest of all the earth's seeds, and yet once it is sown, it springs up to become the largest of shrubs, with branches big enough for the birds of the sky to build nests in its shade. Also no explanation, which means fair game. Oh, we can have fun with this one. We've had all kinds of fun with this one through the centuries. But there's the two stories. Now I bought a packet of mustard seeds. Oh, let's see. I've got one here. Where is it? There it is. Oh, just lost it. Hang on. Little prop malfunction. Okay, so, we've got a whole bunch of them now. Wow. Okay. You'll see. Do you see this? At home, do you see this? Oh, lost it. Lost it. Oh, wait, whoa, it's bouncing. It's on the board. Okay, you all stay right there. Don't go anywhere. Oh, gosh, they're going places. Okay. There we go. The mustard seed. Jesus was not a botanist. He was not a botanist, which means his statement should not be taken as an inerrant statement of botany. Okay? Because this is not the smallest seed. But it's the tiniest of seeds. It's still there. Okay, it's the tiniest of seeds. Jesus was also not a farmer. He was a tectone. You know what a tectone is? A tectone is a builder. He worked in construction. There's an image. I mean, tectone could apply to carpentry. It could apply to stonemasonry. His dad was a builder. Most assume that Jesus probably spent a good portion of his young manhood youth trekking over the hill to Sepphoris and was involved in building that city. It was a huge rebuilding project right during the time Jesus would have grown up. So Jesus didn't traffic in seeds. He trafficked in stones. Isn't it amazing then that with maybe an exception or two that suddenly occur to mind, that for the most part Jesus' go-to illustration did not come from the world of the tectone. It did not come from the world of buildings and mortar and cinder blocks or stones. That's what he lived with, not even wood, unless it was growing in the earth. That should tell us something, because you think storytellers are drawing from their own common experience. And Jesus isn't drawing from his own common experience, although I'm thinking this one was maybe common experience. Because I'm thinking at one time he saw his mother planting seed. What are you planting, Mom? I'm planting mustard seed. Because we need mustard for our, okay, she wouldn't say for our hot dogs. I'm sure they would have been kosher. Also, would not have said for our cheeseburgers. All right, wouldn't have said that either. And I just see the young Jesus looking at this seed and saying, the thing is the tiniest of things, isn't it? Yes, and maybe she's the one that perpetrated the impression. Yes, it's the smallest seed on the planet. But even that would have been for the point of hyperbole, right? Okay. And I'm thinking, Jesus watched as what was planted grew. And especially if he's just a young boy, because everything looks bigger when you're younger. This thing was a tower. Now, if you've seen mustard and you plant mustard, it's not a cedar. It can barely function as a shrub. But I think something unusual happened in this case. Something all out of proportion with the little seed, which is miraculously still poised on my finger. Wow. Amazing the power of saliva. Jesus used saliva too, by the way. Here we go. So, there are our two stories. Two observations. Actually, I'm already kind of dancing in them just a bit. Oh, but I planted. That's right. Okay, there we go. Because I want you to see what I did. I took one of these and I planted it in potting soil and I watered it. That was yesterday. I got up this morning. It looks just the same. I'm going to keep checking. But this is the really, really disappointing thing. The really disappointing thing is the seed packet, days to maturity, 50 to 60. Who wants to wait 50 to 60 days to see something resulting from all of, okay, it took all of like 5 minutes, but all of that effort, all of this now hope and expectation to see results. 50 to 60 days, 2 months from now, it's going to be tax time. And my patience is being taxed as I'm just waiting to see some results. So might I make a case for fake plants? Kim Gray, thank you. Because she gave me this marvelous fake plant. And it's always the same. It's there instantly, and it's always the same. I just have to do this periodically. Because otherwise, it gets dusty. Because it's never moving, and it's never changing. But what a gift. What if she'd given me, hey, Mike, I love you. Here's a packet of seed. Oh, thank you for that work. Fantastic. I'll plant it in the ground, and when something actually grows, I'll kill it. Thank you. And I'll feel guilty that once again I have murdered plant life. Okay. Yeah, we're kind of making observations as we go here, but let me pull it together concisely. Two observations about the two stories as they were turn on the light and have us engage with them so that we can actually get something from them. The realm of God, or we call it the kingdom of God, the realm of God. I like realm because it has like this spaciousness. It's the realm. It's the place where God inhabits, breathes, lives. The realm of God is not a predictable assembly line that we control, but a messy and organic process we behold. There's only so much you can do. Like I said, 5 minutes of labor for me. I got a pot. Although it does have a hole at the bottom. I think that's so the water can come through, right? Wow. And that's why you have this. I provided everything so as to contain the mess. And then all I need to do now is provide enough water and put it in a place where it gets enough light, right? And the rest is up to the dirt. Are you dying inside there, little seed? Are you dying so that there might be fruit coming from you? Oh, I hope you're dying in there. Now, you can see the seed is what you give to others. Try seeing the seed as you, because Jesus said the Son of Man is going to be buried like a seed, right? I mean, we're buried like a seed. So I can say to each and every one of us, as if you are buried in here, are you dying inside there yet? Are you breaking apart yet so there can be new life? That's a process which, as that first story of the growing seed says, is something that's withheld from our eyes. He knows not how. Beautiful phrase in the Greek, rhymes. I mean, how did the translation here read with that story? Let's see. It's sad. Yeah. Through it all, the seed sprouts and grows without the sower knowing how it happens. The soil produces a crop by itself. The Greek, automate, hege, carpophore. Automate, by itself. You are gloriously absent from the picture. Wow. And we're so busy putting ourselves in the picture, aren't we? Church will's all about us in the picture. Look at me. Look at my words. Look at my song. Look at my application. Look at my book. Right? Get out of the picture. Automate, by itself, automatically, hege, the earth, carpophore, karpos is fruit, poie, makes, shapes, the earth, by itself, the earth shapes fruit and a harvest. And he doesn't know how. But we read all kinds of books in which we describe how it happens. We can describe pottery. We can talk about soil. We can talk about what we've learned about what makes it more likely for something to actually grow. What will kill anything that's trying to grow. But we don't make things grow, do we? Okay, so that'd be observation number one. Realm of God is not a predictable assembly line that we control, but a messy and organic process we behold. Now, we spent oodles of money and time and sweat, a handful of individuals in particular, to make a remodel of Heritage Hall happen. When? In the fall of 2019. What was the purpose? Because that hall is going to become like this nexus of human interaction. And so we have built the space, the soil is there, there's the container. Now watch them come in. And pandemic. Guess what's been a ghost town? Because if you build it, they may come, but just because they come doesn't mean the kingdom comes. And sometimes you build it, and it was like, well, not sure exactly what we built that for. Hasn't been functioning the way we thought. In fact, it's not been functioning at all. We're now moving things from there over to here because it's just not being trafficked that much. Seasons change. Now, maybe seasons will come around where it's different, but you get my point. Just to expand, we can manipulate facilities, but you can't grow God. Right? So beware and be balanced. Crowds do not equal the kingdom, which is perhaps why Jesus was always leaving them. I've been reading Matthew. I started in Matthew, start of the year, in Greek. I try to read through the Greek Bible each year. And over and over, it's like a refrain, over and over and over again. And leaving the crowds, and leaving the crowds, and leaving the crowds. You know what happens when he leaves the crowds? Something happens. Kingdom happens. There's a walking on water that doesn't happen in the presence of crowds. There's casting out of this demon-possessed man, a legion of demons that did not happen in the crowd. In fact, when the crowd heard about it, they came and said, "Get out, because you're messing up our control of our systems." So let's be careful in our building, and let's not confuse what we build is somehow equaling building the kingdom. That's observation number one. And I want to add, let me just read from this week's devotions, because this week's devotions are brilliant. Because I didn't write them. This week's devotions are written by my daughter Rihanna. She wrote last week, she wrote this week's. It's always interesting when Rihanna writes, because I like to be like 4 weeks ahead. I've been doing this for 15 years, and so I can be ahead. I like a month ahead. Sophie here in getting the record, I mean, she's got it processed. I mean, it's there. Boom, 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 boom. Lindsay's got it for distribution on the web. But when Rihanna writes, You'll maybe see them in the afternoon sometime, daily, because that's when she turns them in. I asked her this week, and this is totally, I told her not to listen to this. She's at work. She's over at St. Luke's checking out babies. That means, processing new parents, new babies and such. But, I asked her about this and said, so what's your process here? And she said, well, I write and I recite them numerous times before I click send. And I said, well, you just keep doing what you're doing. People can wait. You're worth waiting for. What I wanted to understand about Rihanna, very simply, is Rihanna was like this dirt. I carried her into this building 24 years ago. I mean, she would have been, 2, 3 years old? So she is homegrown. Trevor actually suggested a couple years back, hey, you might see if Rihanna wants to try writing. And I thought, oh, good idea. Now, Rihanna has started writing. Rihanna's also been listening to me every time I would say things like, why did I memorize all the letters of the New Testament? Why didn't I put all the effort into memorizing her gospel? She heard me say this enough. You know what Rihanna did? She memorized her gospel, which is happened to be the Gospel of Mark. Whoa! I didn't give that to her as an assignment. She did that as a young adult out of the house on her own. Whoa, look at that growth. And it's not this growth. It's organic growth. And she's writing. And the writing, I told her, stop sending these to me in a big bundle or even day by day to read and proof. I don't want to proof them. I want to be proofed by them. And you're that good. It's so right. And I want this like the one time I can actually benefit from our devotions. And so I'm reading them. And Dennis, did I see Dennis? Yeah, there you are, Dennis. I almost thought you were Dennis, but you're not. Okay. Is it bad if I say that you were like a sometime mentor of mine? Is that, okay. I've met with Dennis. Consider Dennis. Parole officer, thank you, yes. And you're failing miserably. Dennis gave me a book on writing by Stephen King. And said, read this, be the best thing you ever read about writing. And I passed it right on to Rihanna after I'd processed it and said, read this. Stephen King says, write with the door closed, edit with the door open. And that's exactly what she's doing. She's just practicing it. So it's just absolutely beautiful. Okay, all of that just to say, boy, I love the growth that's there. And I love what she does. I love how it's not just about writing, but it's about living. As she carries the banner for Infor Ministries here. And does more than that. So much she pays out of her own pocket. This is what she said. It is quite impossible for the farmer to make the grain grow. Sure, he can plant the seed and water it and make sure that all the surrounding conditions are perfect for the growth. But in the end, the seed growing is ultimately left to the processes of the earth. Kingdom growth in both ourselves and in our world is similar. We can plant seeds of the gospel and root ourselves in prayer and spiritual rhythms. And yet those actions in and of themselves are not what will ultimately bring the growth that we are hoping to see. The actual growth is beyond our control and is something that only God can bring to fruition. A lot of kingdom growth occurs behind the scenes. We cannot see what is happening to the seed in the ground. Because of this, it may be difficult not to be discouraged at times when things are moving more slowly than we think they should. See, still nothing. Still nothing. Or when things do not seem to be moving at all. I have not had anyone sign up for my life group. Shame on all of you. Shame. Shame. Why am I even bothering with this? Nobody's even signing up. I'm just going to inactivate that group now because it's been 7 days. Nobody's signed up yet for this online group in March. Even when things don't seem to be moving at all. We may be tempted to measure and compare results and to launch ourselves into a fluster of activity. Oh, and I just clapped. I clapped when I read that because I know she meant flurry, but she said fluster. And I read this to her and I said, were you just being creative there? She said, no, I think I was thinking flurry. I said, but fluster is brilliant. A fluster of activity. Because we all have our inner Marthas flustering with activities to make things grow, to make things happen. And the more we try, I keep poking it. No, just leave it alone. Oh, I want to leave it alone. Water, light, time. We may be tempted to measure and compare results, to launch ourselves into a fluster of activity to try to manipulate and bring the results that we think should be there. Oftentimes, doing more things to try to force growth ends up being more counterproductive than anything else that we can do. The difficult task that we have before us as sowers is to recognize our inability to bring growth and to surrender our control over the process. And so to put this in concise words, this would be observation number 2 on these 2 stories. Divine results are totally out of proportion with human contributions. And I want to finish by telling a story. It'd be terrible if I didn't tell you a story at all this week, you know? Now, he talks about Jesus telling stories, but he himself tells no stories. Okay, story. And it's the picture. Because the picture's going to really tell the story. You're shaking your head no. Okay. Oh, rebooting. That means story time and then eventually picture. All right, so last Tuesday, so my wife is at dance class in Meridian, and she had to take her own car because I'm having to go down to St. Luke's to get food to Brennan and Arabelle. Arabelle is my granddaughter. She has terminal cancer, ACC. You want to target something, people? Target ACC, adrenal cortical carcinoma. She has survived 2 years, which I totally attribute to the fact that people pray, very simply. She had brain surgery on Monday morning, and it was like the tumor just fell out of her head. It was no difficult extraction. She was cracking jokes. Okay, she was actually trashing her older brother constantly Monday afternoon. Okay, it's just beautiful. Okay, it's just beautiful. And now she's up and she's walking. They're talking about her potentially coming home, but they needed dinner. So I go down. I take dinner down to St. Luke's, and then I'm realizing, okay, I've already missed the first hour of instruction. So what am I going to do with this time? And it's like, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to Mad Swede Brewing Company because there's hopefully a group of people meeting there for the first time tonight, 7 o'clock. It's like 7:25, and so there I go. I go to the Mad Swede Brewing Company over at Cole, just past Costco, and this is what I find. Honestly, I didn't know driving up. Are Wes and Ginny Wynn, are they going to be there? Will the place be vacated because they sat and waited for 30 minutes, but nobody showed? Or will they be there with one person awkwardly trying to make conversation? I didn't know what I would walk in on. And they were the only ones in the place. And that's what I saw. I sat down at an empty spot at the table, and they were going around the table telling each other stories. It was glorious. Jenny, you're amazing. She's amazing because she's just being Jenny. And Wes is just sitting there. Well, oh gosh, the two of them is beautiful. But if this is Aprilla, this wouldn't be Aquila and Priscilla. This would be Priscilla and Aquila, because Jenny is the one going around the table. It was absolutely beautiful. Thank you, Wes, for having the wisdom to let your wife do the talking and do the leading at the table. and for your manhood not to be diminished, but actually to shine through it. And they're going around the table, and there's my friend Julie Downer, and there's Andrew. Oh my gosh, tap dancing Andrew Niemer. Wow. And they're blown away. I mean, I love this, where they're saying, wow, tap dancing. You know, you were up like in Vancouver, New York. So you've heard of Gregory Hines, right? And Andrew is able to say, Gregory Hines was my teacher. And then to see Wes was like, it was glorious, unscripted, glorious story. And I just felt really bad. Oh, okay, trying to remember the names here, because that's Mark and, Mark and Helen, I think. And then that's Pam. Rick Scott. Rick says, I have to go after him. I was a pilot, and we're all going, ooh, that's impressive. Pilots. But they all told their stories as they went around. And I'm listening to Johnny Cash singing A Boy Named Sue. And it's heaven meeting earth. I don't share that to discourage you, because I never had a first night with any group I've ever led that was like that. Never. My first night with the first group I ever led here had 3 people, only one of whom returned the next week. And the one who returned the next week is the one who had started, had the first word to say on that first evening, as she said, so how long do we have to be here? That wasn't a joke. She was dead serious. Seriously, come on. Growth, come on, I need something. I need a sign. My answer to her very simply was, as long as you want, although we will eventually kick you out. You know, so I don't share that story, but it's a glorious thing when you can see, wow, and that's just the beginning. That's just the first blade. That's not a harvest yet in this relational, transformational, missional pursuit. Every one of them was doing around said, we like to hike, we like to hike, we like to hike. Ooh, I think I know where this group's going on some missional activity in the environs of the Treasure Valley. Is also a relational building. It's all woven together. You can't strip them apart. That's just the beginning. Our beginnings may be more modest, more small, more discouraging, and it might just be you. And you turn it into a time of praying. God, send someone else here. Maybe there's somebody who's just going to walk in and we'll invite them over. Hey, let us buy you a beer because it's a brewery. So there you go. I think I'm done. There's a mustard seed in this Bible. There we go. There we go. Right there. You know, I was going to talk about this book here, but there's just no time. And I think I done said what I needed to say. So I hope it irritated you. I hope I provoked you. I hope you have been indicted. Otherwise, more than likely, you haven't really been listening at all. Or you're listening for someone else, perhaps. I'm not even sure how I'm supposed to end exactly. I think I need to end by having you all stand. I didn't talk with Jesse about, okay, what do we do now? And there's nobody here. So, will you stand with me? I believe Danica, I think, has already left the room. Yeah, because there's like Vine Arts meeting in 3 minutes. So I'm going to quickly pray. I think there may be some words for prayer that are on the screen. And so please linger and lean into those if it's for you. We will linger with you as long as it takes until we turn out the lights and say, okay, now go home. There's soaking prayer tomorrow. But we will take time with you and pray. So thank you for the worship this morning, Jesse. And all of yous. All right, let's pray. Oh, Lord, thank you. Thank you, God, that you are a storytelling God. You're not a God of thick dusty theological treatises, but you are a God of story who breathed fresh life into us through stories that upend us, that distress us, that bother us. And Lord, it is our inherent nature to smooth them out or just to eliminate them. We would love, God, just to eliminate especially that whole dumpster download of Old Testament stories that drive us crazy and we think give you tremendously bad PR that we're constantly having to explain. So, God, that's our nature and our tendency and our leaning. We want to edit you when you're all about shaping us through some of the most stretching stories that continue to impress us deeply. Let us, Lord, see each encounter with story and the story unfolding around us today. Let us see it, Lord, as that growing seed buried in the earth. Automate hege carpophore, the earth bringing forth fruit of itself. Help us to stop messing with it. Help us to stop tinkering with it. Help us, Lord, to stop manipulating it, confusing those things for stewardship or something, Lord, and to realize there's a time, once the seed has been planted, to just very well leave it alone. Because you're the one who makes things grow. And this is with me, my personal life, my inner life, my friendship life with 2 or 3, that personal level of connection with 3 to 12, the social connection with clumpings of groups of humanity, and then this wide public form of which we've known so little over the last year. Lord, bring a balance to our life where we are invested in all the soil of humanity. And let us embrace the messy or an organic process in which you make things grow, in which you make us grow, in which you make others grow. And we ask in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. All right. Go make the invisible God, go make the invisible God visible. Yes? All right, thank you.
Thanks for watching. To respond or receive prayer after the live stream closes, please email prayer@vineyardboise.org. And if possible, include your phone number. We'd love to get in touch with you. Thanks.